Hi guys, time for part 3 of the Sonic retrospective, and you know what that means? Time for Sonic CD! Possibly the most interesting thing about Sonic CD is that, while it is often claimed to be the best Sonic title, when I ask fellow Sonic fans their opinion of it, many of them simply raise their hands and say, "You know, I never got to play it, but I've heard good things." For the most part, this is because the game was released for Sega's ill-fated Mega CD, or Sega CD in some areas, add-on. Like the 32X which would follow it, the hardware never exactly became popular. It goes without saying that people will not buy your software, in this case Sonic CD, if they don't have the hardware to play it on. For a vast majority of people I have spoken with, their first chance to play the game didn't come along until Sonic Gems Collection was released, despite a PC port having been brought out long before then. As a result, Sonic CD has gained something of a cult status. Moving on to the game itself, it more closely resembles Sonic 1 than it does Sonic 2. The special stages are accessed by collecting 50 rings and jumping into a giant ring at the end of the level. The checkpoints are the Sonic 1 lampposts, and there are 3 acts to each zone. The reason behind this is that the game was developed by Naoto Ashima, who you may remember as creating the first ever doodle of what would later become Sonic, and it was supposedly developed alongside Sonic 2. Surprisingly, Sonic CD does include the Spin Dash. However, in CD, the Spin Dash takes longer to prepare and, well, it's hardly spectacular. If you want to rev up and shoot away at high speed, you'll need to use the Super Peel Out instead. A move exclusive to CD, the Peel Out works in the same way to a Spin Dash from Sonic 2 and 3, only you hold up on the D-pad instead of down, and once you use it, you will still be vulnerable to enemy attacks. Another exclusive feature to CD is time travel. Yes, I have said in the past that I hate time travel plots, but Sonic CD actually follows the rules of linear time travel, in that anything you do in the past has an immediate impact on the future. Because of this, there are 4 versions to most levels: the present, the past, the bad future, and the good future. Each of these time zones makes slight alterations to the layout of each level and the enemies you will encounter there. For example, in the past, all of the enemies are brand new, shiny, and in perfect working order. In the bad future, those same enemies are worn and malfunctioning, changing their attack pattern accordingly. Finally, in the good future, there are just plain no robots. How do you get to this good future instead of the bad future exactly? Well, in each level there is a machine that's seemingly creating Robotnik's robots for him. You will need to travel back to the past and destroy this machine to remove the badniks from a level. You can also destroy a hologram of Metal Sonic to make animals appear in a stage. The actual time travelling itself is performed by finding a past or future sign and then maintaining Sonic's speed for a set time. Easier said than done, and you only get one shot at using each sign. If you manage to destroy Robotnik's machine in both Act 1 and 2, then when you reach Act 3 you will automatically be in the good future as opposed to the default bad future for the level's showdown with Robotnik. If you can create a good future in every single level, you will be awarded with the game's good ending. This effectively changes the pace of the entire game, as now, instead of blasting from left to right as quickly as possible, you're trying to figure out how to maintain your speed near a sign to get to the past, and once you're there, you're trying to find a mini-factory. It is strange to see such a strong focus on exploration in a side-scrolling Sonic title, and even stranger that it actually works and is reflected in the level design. Being able to immediately see the fruits of your labour gives a certain sense of self-satisfaction that you just won't experience in other titles in the series, and it's an all-round clever mechanic. It also has a direct impact on the length, as there are now 4 versions of every Act 1 and 2, and 2 versions of every Act 3. You would need to replay this game many times over if you wanted to see everything, and it's an almost Herculean task. If you don't want to go to all that trouble just for a better ending, you can still do things the traditional way by collecting the Time Stones, gems that basically play the role of the Chaos Emeralds, and can still net you the good ending. The special stage here requires you to destroy the purple UFOs before the time limit expires. On occasion, a blue UFO will appear that can grant you extra time. Now I admit, I've never been very good at this particular special stage, as it's near impossible for me to judge when to leap at a UFO, thanks to how the sprites are constantly resizing, and the whole thing is just plain disorientating. You can reach it the same way as the Sonic 1 special stages, just finish a level with 50 rings or more and leap into the giant ring. The game also introduced us to Amy Rose and Metal Sonic, who have become long-standing staples of the Sonic universe and fan favourites. The plot centres around these two, with Metal Sonic kidnapping Amy early on in the game, and Sonic later rescuing her. Metal Sonic makes for the game's most memorable, enjoyable, and iconic boss battle, as you have to race your robot counterpart while Robotnik follows with a deadly laser. The boss fights, on the whole, tend to do things differently to the other 2D Sonics. You won't always be attacking Robotnik directly. He no longer takes a consistent 8 hits, and in most circumstances the entire level is used to stage the battle, making every fight a more complicated and grand affair. The graphical prowess of this game is technically better than that of its cousins, being able to display more colours, more varied palettes, and being able to handle more objects on screen at any one time, but the aesthetic simply remains the same as that of Sonic 1 and 2. One of the most talked about points of this game is the music. For the first time we had CD quality music in a Sonic game, though the US version contained an entirely different soundtrack to that of the Japanese and European versions. Now, I only own the Japanese and European versions, but the US soundtrack was used for Sonic CD's inclusion in Sonic Gems Collection, which I have played. 9 times out of 10, fans will tell you the US soundtrack is largely inferior. For me, personally, music is not that large of a factor in games. You'll notice I rarely talk about it in my reviews. I'm happy to play to either of the soundtracks, but I will say the soundtrack is most definitely varied. Each time period of each level has its own music, which must have taken a lot of effort. Yet it is due to this wide variety and multiple layered tracks, thanks to the CD technology, that I can never recall or hum a single tune from the game. The game is a lot of fun and does a lot of things right. It is the only time you'll be given so much choice and freedom in a 2D Sonic game, as it truly tries to cater for speedrunners, explorers, and completionists all at the same time, and it handles this beautifully. The layout of a few levels, Wacky Workbench, Act 1, This Does Mean You, infuriate me, and it seems someone on the level design team is too fond of springs for their own good. The length is just right. Long enough that you've got your money's worth, not so long that it outstays its welcome and you start forgetting entire zones exist before beginning to lose interest. The difficulty is shockingly low. I remember having a much harder time with this game when I was younger, but going back to it for this review, it seemed like a breeze. Few enemies pose a legitimate threat, and when you're battling Robotnik, you usually win as soon as you figure out his weakness, without being asked to repeat the process. While I can see why it was not popular or well known in its own time, there is no excuse for having not played it today. It's available in its original form on Mega CD, there is a PC port, it's on Sonic Gems Collection, and it's now coming to XBLA and PSN with options to use the Sonic 2 Spin Dash. If you're a fan of the old school Sonics and you've not played this, you need to rectify that immediately. If you're a fan who has played this, well, I'm more than likely preaching to the choir. I still stand by my judgment that Sonic 2 is my favourite Sonic title, but I'll admit I prefer Sonic CD to Sonic 1. Now there is a lot more that could be said about this game, but I don't want to be talking about this forever, and maybe it's something we can cover when it comes out on XBLA later this year. For now, this is Afr0Blu signing off, and I'll see you next time for Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
You can go again. Don't fall behind. Say don't be late. in heaven.